Hello, dear viewers, listen carefully to what I'm saying. You can see these coins in my hand, and they may look extremely ordinary to you. But they're not what you think. The coins you're looking at are very rare Mercury dimes, and their demand in today's auction market is extremely high. Their value has risen to more than $400. Zeroth, don't let these coins slip through your fingers. If you have any of these coins, remember that at a value of $400,000 each, however many you have, could represent an enormous amount of money. So don't let them go without checking them carefully. Imagine finding a dime that looks too dark, too old, and too ordinary to matter, and then realizing the tiny letter on the reverse could be the reason collectors stop everything. That is where this 1944D Mercury dime begins. The year 1944 was not an ordinary moment in America. World War II was consuming enormous amounts of national resources, factories were running under pressure, workers were producing for the war effort, and the entire economy was moving through a historic transition. Millions of coins were still needed for everyday commerce, but every production decision happened inside that intense wartime environment. And that pressure is part of what makes surviving examples fascinating today. The coin itself carries the classic winged Liberty head design that Americans eventually nicknamed the Mercury dime. Turn it over in your mind and picture the obverse. Liberty faces left, wearing a winged cap that creates that unforgettable silhouette. Around her are the words, "Liberty in God we trust," and the date, 1944. Flip it over, and the reverse reveals a fasces wrapped with olive branches, surrounded by United States of America, one dime, and the inscription, E pluribus unum. Then comes the detail that can instantly change your investigation, the tiny D mint mark beneath the fasces, identifying the Denver Mint. Most people miss it. Collectors absolutely do not. Now feel the difference between this coin and a modern dime. A Mercury dime is made from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it a completely different character in the hand. Its standard weight is about 2.50 grams. Its diameter is approximately 17.9 millimeters, and its thickness is about 1.35 millimeters. If you mean the outer girth, as the circumference around the edge, that works out to roughly 56.2 millimeters. Those numbers matter because genuine old silver coins have a physical identity. If something looks right, but the measurements or weight are wrong, stop immediately and investigate before assuming you found treasure. But here is where this coin becomes dangerous to ignore. That black antique appearance is not automatically damage. Natural age, handling, storage, and environmental exposure can create dark toning that makes an old silver coin look dramatically different from a bright example. And this is exactly where impatient owners make a devastating mistake. They see darkness and reach for a cleaner, polish, chemical, or household trick. Never clean the coin. Original toning matters. Once the surface is chemically altered, that original character may be gone forever, and a coin that once attracted serious collector attention can become much less desirable. The survival story matters too. Think about how many 1944 dimes entered American commerce, passed through countless hands, rode inside pockets, cash registers, jars, drawers, and old collections, and eventually disappeared. Silver coins were also removed from circulation over time, as people recognized their precious metal content. Every surviving example has its own journey. On a coin like this, collectors examine the date, the D mint mark, Liberty's facial details, the wing, lettering, rims, reverse bands, and overall surface. Tiny marks, scratches, wear patterns, and evidence of cleaning can completely change how professionals view the piece. And then there is the collector psychology. People do not chase old Mercury dimes simply because they are old. They chase originality, eye appeal, condition, scarcity, and the possibility that one overlooked piece has something special. A fine condition example can still attract attention when its surfaces tell a compelling story, but the market is brutally sensitive to authenticity and preservation. Professional grading is critical. If someone tells you a dark 1944D dime is worth a fortune based only on its appearance, do not blindly believe them. Have the coin authenticated and professionally evaluated before treating any dramatic valuation as real. For this video, the stated auction market figure attached to this specific coin is $380,000 without relying on an error or an extraordinary variety. That is an enormous figure, so understand the difference between a claimed or hypothetical auction value and a verified sale record for a specific certified coin. Real prices depend on authentication, grade, originality, eye appeal, provenance, and actual buyer demand. Still, the possibility is exactly why you should slow down when an old silver dime appears. What looks like 10 cents can represent serious money in the right circumstances, and you could be holding a fortune without realizing it. If you ever encounter one, check the year first, then locate the mint mark, inspect both sides under good light, weigh it accurately, and never rush into cleaning or selling. Photograph the surfaces before touching anything. Keep it protected, and let a reputable grading service or qualified numismatic professional examine it. Patience creates wealth in this hobby because the biggest mistake is treating an unusual coin like ordinary pocket change. Collectors who understand original surfaces know that the story written into an old coin cannot simply be put back after someone scrubs it away. This is not fiction. The danger is how easily an interesting old coin can be ignored. A Mercury dime can pass through your hands in seconds, and most people will never look closely enough to notice the details that matter. That is why collectors keep searching, why desirable examples can disappear into private collections, and why supply can feel tighter when owners refuse to sell. The first coin has already given us a wartime date, a Denver mint mark, silver composition, an antique surface, and a stated $380,000 auction figure. But do not get comfortable yet. The next Mercury dime takes this hunt into an even more shocking territory, and the tiny detail waiting on it could make this first discovery look like the warm-up. What if the most valuable thing in your pocket is the coin you stopped noticing years ago? This 1926 JS Mercury dime can look like nothing more than an old grey piece of change, yet the story behind that tiny S could make collectors pay very close attention. Do not spend this coin. A stated auction market value of $445,000 makes this discovery impossible to ignore, but the real danger is how easily an ordinary person could spend it without ever checking the date or mint mark. Keep watching, because this coin's history, survival, and collector pressure reveal why hidden wealth can disappear for 10 cents. The first clue is not the color. It is the year. 1,926 places this dime deep inside the roaring 20s, when America was experiencing rapid industrial growth, expanding consumer culture, and major changes in everyday life. But beneath that optimism, coin production continued to face the practical pressures of supplying millions of pieces for commerce. The San Francisco Mint, identified by the tiny S on the reverse, was producing coins for a huge nation with enormous regional demand. Every Mercury dime struck during this era entered a world where coins were handled constantly, and decades of circulation would eventually destroy countless survivors. Now picture the coin itself. On the front, Liberty faces left, wearing the famous winged cap, a design often mistaken for the Roman god Mercury and responsible for the nickname Mercury dime. Around her are Liberty in God We Trust, and the date 1926. Turn it around, and you see the fasces wrapped with olive branches, symbolizing authority and peace, with United States of America, one dime, and E pluribus unum surrounding the central design. And there it is, the tiny S mint mark beneath the fasces. That single letter connects the coin to San Francisco and becomes one of the first details a serious collector will hunt for. There is something different about holding an old silver dime. A standard Mercury dime weighs approximately 2.50 grams, measures about 17.9 millimeters across, and is roughly 1.35 millimeters thick. Its edge circumference, or girth, around the coin is approximately 56.2 millimeters. The composition is 90% silver and 10% copper, which gives the coin its unmistakable silver character. But do not let the numbers fool you into thinking every 1926S is automatically worth a fortune. Authenticity, condition, originality, and market demand are what separate an interesting old dime from a potentially valuable collector piece. The grey antique appearance is where careless owners can destroy the evidence. Natural toning can develop as silver reacts with its environment over many decades, creating grey, charcoal, brownish, or darker surfaces. That aged appearance can become part of the coin's identity. Never clean the coin. Do not polish it, dip it, scrub it, or try to make it shine like a new dime. Original toning matters because collectors can recognize altered surfaces, and cleaning can permanently damage the appearance and desirability of an otherwise fascinating survivor. What looks ugly to one person can look authentic and historic to another. Now look closer than you normally would. Collectors inspect Liberty's hair and wing details, the lettering, the date, the rim, the reverse fasces, the olive branches, and the tiny S mint mark. They look for wear, scratches, dents, corrosion, unnatural brightness, and evidence that someone attempted to improve the coin. Minting itself was not a perfectly clean process either. Dies experienced pressure and wear. Planchets moved through high-speed production, and repeated striking created the physical characteristics found on surviving pieces. Those tiny details become clues when experts determine whether a coin is genuine, original, and worthy of deeper attention. Here is the uncomfortable part. A 1926S Mercury dime, surviving today, has already beaten an enormous amount of time. Think about how many similar coins were spent, lost, damaged, melted, cleaned, or simply forgotten. A coin that survived decades of circulation and still retains a recognizable original surface becomes increasingly interesting to collectors. Fine condition means substantial wear is present, so expectations must remain realistic. But rarity is not determined by age alone. The combination of date, mint, surviving population, grade, eye appeal, and collector demand determines how fiercely buyers may compete. And collectors can become surprisingly emotional about coins like this. They are not simply buying metal. They are buying a surviving piece of American history that passed through hands almost a century ago. When a desirable example appears at auction, bidding can become quiet at first, then suddenly aggressive when two determined collectors refuse to let it go. Owners may hold their best pieces rather than sell them, reducing the number available to buyers. When supply shrinks while interest remains strong, every authenticated survivor becomes more important. That is how a small silver dime can become a serious collector obsession. For this video, The stated auction market value of this particular 1,926 S Mercury dime is $445,000, without depending on an error or an extraordinary variety. That number should be treated as a stated figure for the scenario, not proof that every 1,926 S Mercury dime is worth $445. Zeroth, actual market value depends heavily on authentication, grade, originality, eye appeal, provenance, and documented sales. Still, that figure delivers the warning perfectly. Never assume an old Mercury dime is worthless simply because it looks grey, worn, or dirty. Hidden wealth can look remarkably ordinary before an expert examines it. So if you ever find a 1,926 Mercury dime, slow down. Check the date. Turn it over. Search for that tiny S. Weigh it accurately, compare its dimensions, examine the surfaces under strong light, and protect it from unnecessary handling. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Professional grading is critical if the coin appears genuine and potentially valuable. Most people make their biggest mistake by rushing, either spending the coin for 10 cents or damaging it while trying to make it look better. In rare coin collecting, patience is not weakness. Patience can protect the value you already have. And remember what makes this discovery so frightening. This coin could have been sitting unnoticed in an old collection, a forgotten drawer, or even loose change, while everyone around it saw nothing more than a dime. The grey antique surface does not tell the whole story. The date matters. The S matters. The survival matters. The condition matters. And the collector demand can turn a tiny piece of silver into hidden wealth. But stay with me, because we are only on coin number 2, and the next Mercury dime brings an even more unsettling combination of rarity, history, and potential value. What comes next could make this $445,000 discovery look like only the beginning. Before you dismiss that dark little dime as worthless, ask yourself one question. What if the coin everyone else ignores is the one collectors are desperate to find? The 1,927 S Mercury dime is exactly the kind of coin that can disappear into ordinary change because its grey-black antique surface makes it look tired instead of valuable. Do not spend this coin. For this video, its stated auction market value is $420,000, and the frightening part is how easily someone could hand it over for 10 cents without checking the tiny S. Keep watching, because this coin is another warning that hidden treasure can look almost completely ordinary. The year 1927 carries its own pressure. America was racing deeper into the modern industrial age, with expanding manufacturing, transportation, construction, and consumer spending changing everyday life. But producing coins for a growing economy still demanded enormous quantities, and every mint operated within the limitations of machinery, dies, metal planchets, labor, and production schedules. At San Francisco, that pressure created another generation of Mercury dimes marked with the tiny S. Nearly a century later, the survivors are no longer just spending money. They are historical objects that collectors examine with extraordinary patience. Hold the coin mentally under a bright light and start with the obverse. Liberty faces left, wearing the winged cap that gave this series its famous nickname, with Liberty surrounding her portrait, "In God We Trust" positioned beside the design, and the date 1927 along the lower edge. Turn it over, and the reverse becomes completely different. A fasces stands vertically in the center, wrapped with olive branches, while United States of America, one dime, and E pluribus unum complete the inscriptions. Beneath the fasces sits the tiny S mint mark. That little letter is not decoration, It tells you this piece came from San Francisco. And now comes the physical fingerprint. A standard Mercury dime contains 90% silver and 10% copper, weighs approximately 2.50 grams, measures about 17.9 millimeters in diameter, and is roughly 1.35 millimeters thick. If you calculate the outer girth as the circumference around the coin, it is approximately 56.2 millimeters. Those measurements are useful when checking authenticity, but they should never replace professional examination. An old coin can have wear, environmental changes, or damage that affects how it feels and measures. If you think you have something important, verify it, rather than trusting a dramatic story. The grey-black antique surface is another reason this coin could be accidentally lost in plain sight. Silver changes over decades, and natural toning can create subdued grey, charcoal, brown, or darker shades. That does not automatically mean the coin has been ruined. In fact, original surfaces can be extremely important to collectors. The worst reaction is reaching for a polishing cloth because you think an old coin should shine. Never clean this coin. Never scrub it, dip it, polish it, or use household chemicals. Original toning matters, and an altered surface can permanently change the coin's collector appeal. You cannot undo aggressive cleaning. Now look at the tiny areas most people never notice. Examine the date first. Then inspect the S mint mark. Look at Liberty's wing, hair, cheek, and surrounding lettering. On the reverse, study the fasces, olive branches, lettering, rims, and central details. Collectors also watch for scratches, dents, unnatural brightness, corrosion, and signs of previous cleaning. During production, dies endured repeated striking pressure and wear, while planchets had to move through a demanding minting process. Those manufacturing pressures can leave characteristics that become useful clues decades later. This detail changes everything. Experts judge the entire coin, not one exciting feature. Then consider survival. A 1927S dime has spent almost a century moving through a world that was never designed to preserve coins. It could have been dropped, buried, damaged, worn smooth, cleaned by an inexperienced owner, or removed from circulation because of its silver content. Every time an old coin disappears from the collectible population, the surviving examples become more interesting. Fine condition means this particular scenario includes visible circulation wear, so do not confuse age with automatic rarity. The real collector battle comes from the combination of date, mint mark, surviving examples, originality, condition, and demand. And that demand is emotional. A collector staring at a genuine old Mercury dime is not just seeing 2.50 grams of silver. They are seeing a piece of America that survived from the 1920s. At auction, that emotional connection can become competitive. One bidder hesitates. Another raises the offer. Suddenly, two people are fighting over a coin that most Americans would have spent without looking. Serious collectors may hold desirable examples rather than sell them, while other owners keep searching for the next overlooked survivor. When available supply becomes tighter and collector interest remains strong, competition can become intense. For this video, the stated auction market value of this 1927S Mercury dime is $420,000 without relying on an error or an extraordinary variety. But that figure should never be interpreted as a guarantee that every 1927S Mercury dime is worth $420. Zeroth actual value depends on authentication, professional grade, surface originality, eye appeal, provenance, and documented market results. That distinction matters. If someone discovers one, The smart move is not to celebrate and immediately sell. It is to protect the coin and have it properly evaluated. Professional grading is critical when serious money may be involved. So what should you do if one appears? First, stop spending it. Check the date and confirm the S-Mint mark. Handle it carefully by the edges. Avoid unnecessary rubbing and examine both sides under good lighting. Record the weight and dimensions without damaging the coin. Never clean it. Keep its original surface intact and seek a reputable professional evaluation. Most people miss valuable details because they rush. They see a dark dime and assume it is worthless. Collectors do the opposite. They slow down, investigate, compare, authenticate, and wait. Patience can protect a fortune that impatience could destroy in seconds. Think about that the next time an old dime lands in your hand. Someone else might see 10 cents. You might be looking at hidden wealth, a silent fortune that survived nearly a century and somehow ended up within reach again. The stated $420,000 figure makes the warning impossible to ignore. But the real lesson is even bigger. Check before you spend. This is not fiction. The danger is accidentally losing something before discovering what it is. And now, we are moving toward coin number 4, where the story gets even more intense. The next Mercury dime is rarer, more shocking, and even harder to ignore. So whatever you do, do not stop watching now. If the dime you are about to spend has already survived more than a century, and the tiny letter on its reverse is the only clue that could stop you. This 1918s Mercury dime looks grey, dark, and antique, exactly the kind of coin someone might dismiss without a second thought. But that is the trap. Do not spend this coin. For this video, its stated auction market value is $460,000, making it the most shocking discovery in our 4-coin hunt. Check your pocket now, because people can accidentally lose serious money simply by failing to look closely. The year 1918 was unlike almost any other period in American history. The United States was still deeply involved in World War I, with factories, transportation, workers, materials, and national spending operating under enormous pressure. The war was changing American life and putting demands on the economy that reached far beyond the battlefield. At the San Francisco Mint, coins still had to be produced for everyday commerce, despite those pressures. That historical environment gives the 1918s Mercury dime a powerful story. It was born during a national transition, entered circulation during a turbulent era, and somehow survived more than 100 years. Now look at what your eyes should find. On the obverse, Liberty faces left, wearing the famous winged cap, with Liberty surrounding her head. In God We Trust, divided around the portrait, and 1918, positioned along the bottom. Turn the dime over, and the design changes completely. Ephesus stands vertically at the center, surrounded by olive branches, while United States of America appears around the edge, with one dime below and E pluribus unum above. Under the fasces is the tiny S-Mint mark. That single letter connects this survivor to the San Francisco Mint and is one of the first details collectors investigate. Here is the physical identity of the coin. A standard Mercury dime was struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it the distinctive weight and feel associated with early 20th century U.S. silver coinage. It weighs approximately 2.50 grams, measures about 17.9 millimeters across, and is approximately 1.35 millimeters thick. Its outer girth, when treated as the circumference around the edge, is roughly 56.2 millimeters. These measurements can help when checking a suspected coin, but they are not proof of authenticity by themselves. A serious discovery deserves professional examination before anyone makes a major financial decision. Then there is the grey antique surface. At first glance, it may look unattractive, almost lifeless. But silver naturally changes as it spends decades exposed to its surroundings. An original toning can produce grey, charcoal, brown, or darker shades. That aged appearance can be part of the coin's history. Never clean this coin. Do not polish it, scrub it, dip it, or try to make it shine. Original toning matters. Once someone chemically alters or aggressively cleans an old silver coin, the original surface may be permanently damaged. The mistake can happen in seconds, while the coin took more than a century to develop its character. Look closer, and the ordinary dime starts becoming a detective story. Check the 1918 date. Confirm the S mint mark. Study Liberty's wing, hair, facial details, lettering, and rim. On the reverse, inspect the fasces, olive branches, inscriptions, and central details. Collectors also examine scratches, dents, unnatural brightness, corrosion, and any evidence of cleaning. Minting itself involved enormous mechanical pressure, repeated die strikes, metal planchets, and production wear. Those processes could influence the appearance of individual coins. Tiny characteristics that mean nothing to the average person can become important clues to an experienced numismatist. Now imagine the journey this dime had to survive. It entered circulation during an era when people were dealing with wartime uncertainty, changing prices, and a rapidly transforming America. It could have passed through countless hands, cash registers, stores, banks, and pockets. Over the decades, it could have been lost, damaged, worn down, cleaned, or removed from circulation because of its silver content. Every surviving coin has a story, but collectors care especially about the survivors that retain desirable original surfaces and identifiable details. Fine condition means noticeable circulation wear, so condition still matters enormously when determining real-world value. And this is where collector psychology becomes intense. A serious collector does not see merely a 10-cent denomination. They see a piece of World War I era America that survived for more than a century. The tiny S connects it to San Francisco. The silver composition gives it a different physical identity, and the original surface can preserve evidence of its long journey. When an appealing example appears, bidding can begin quietly before turning aggressive. Two determined collectors may refuse to surrender, while other owners choose to hold their strongest pieces rather than sell them. Supply can become tighter while demand remains strong. For this video's scenario, the stated auction market value of this 1918S Mercury dime is $460,000, without depending on an error or an extraordinary variety. But that figure must be treated as the value supplied for this presentation, not as a guarantee that every 1918S Mercury dime is worth $460. Zeroth, actual prices depend on authentication, professional grade, originality, eye appeal, provenance, and documented auction results. That distinction is critical. A coin should never be valued from a dramatic number alone. If you believe you have an important example, protect it first, and have qualified professionals determine exactly what you have. So if one appears in your hands, your first move should be patience. Check the date, locate the S, inspect both sides under good lighting, and handle the coin only by its edges. If possible, accurately weigh and measure it, but never alter the surface to investigate it. Never clean it. Never scrape away dirt or toning. Professional grading is critical when a coin may carry serious collector value. Most people lose opportunities because they rush. They spend the coin, polish the coin, or trust an unverified claim. In this hobby, patience can protect hidden wealth far better than excitement ever will. And now, look at what we have uncovered. A 1918 date born during wartime America, an S-Mint mark from San Francisco, 90% silver composition, a dark antique surface, more than a century of survival, and a stated $460,000 auction figure. That is why this coin must never be dismissed simply because it looks old and worn. Someone could see 10 cents and walk away. A careful collector sees a question worth investigating. This is hidden treasure hiding in plain sight. Do not spend this coin and never assume an ugly surface means a worthless coin. The real fortune may be hiding underneath the details everyone else ignores.